Hey, good morning, class. Welcome in. I hope you had a great weekend. We are going to wrap up our second chapter today by talking about the additional amendments. So, amendments 11 through 27. We'll go through all of them, and that will kind of conclude our discussion on the framework of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and all of 27 of our amendments. Okay? All right, let's get into it real quick here. Let's go into number 11. So, the 11th Amendment was created in 1795. So you'll notice in the slides I provide the amendment and when it was ratified. Okay, so this amendment essentially states that the states could not be sued by other states or foreign nations. Okay, so one state could not sue another. Another nation could not sue, say Georgia or New York at the time. So it prevented that from happening. So that was ratified and passed in 1795. Now, the next amendment, number 12, is rather interesting because it kind of sets the stage for politics moving forward. So, this established new election procedures for the president and the vice president within the Electoral College. So, originally, the presidential nominee with the most votes would become president, and that person that came in second place would actually become the vice president. So, the 12th Amendment kind of eliminates this and instead essentially provides the ticket for the president and the vice president to run together. And therefore, they will run, and electors have the option to elect them. And that is a little bit different than first place, second place. Okay, so that's what we're looking at with the 12th Amendment. And that was passed in 1804. Okay, next are going to be our Civil War / Reconstruction 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. 13th Amendment we've talked about extensively. 13th Amendment is the documentary we looked at. It abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime. So that was passed in 1865. And again, as we saw with the documentary, we've seen our prison systems essentially expand because of the loophole in the 13th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is going to be very important as well. This is going to define citizenship. It's going to establish due process and equal protection under the law. So this amendment granted citizenship for all persons born in the United States, including former slaves. So former slaves became actual U.S. citizens and officially active participants in our country's politics and being actively involved. It also guaranteed due process and equal protection under the law. So the 14th provided protection for all citizens. And this would lead into, and that was actually passed in 1868, so just shortly after the Civil War. The 15th Amendment is going to be passed in 1870, and voting rights could no longer be denied based on race. So all men of different races or ethnic backgrounds could now vote. Now, this is important to understand because 1870, we have to look at the context here, okay? Former slaves were granted the ability to vote, but if, say, someone came in from Asia or Latin America and became a citizen in the United States, they also had the ability to vote. But this is important as well. It's 1870, but men are only included in this, okay? Women still do not have the right to vote. So if you were a woman of color, you could not vote, all right? That was how this was laid out in 1870. That's going to change here in a little bit. We'll take a look at the 16th and 17th next. So the 16th Amendment, it basically allows Congress to collect taxes on anyone that gained an income. So we have a federal income tax. So I make money. If you have a job, you are making money yourself. The government has the right to tax, and those taxes are collected, and you have to do your taxes every year. This is going to be set and established in 1913. So any kind of source, any kind of job that you have, a federal income tax is now required. Also in 1913 is the 17th Amendment. And the 17th Amendment is going to establish the election of U.S. senators, okay? Each state would have 2 senators, all right, elected by their state's citizens, okay? They would serve a 6-year term, and each senator would have 1 vote in Congress. So we have 100 senators in our Congress currently, each of them getting 1 vote. Michigan has 2 senators that we elect every 6 years. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the 18th and 19th Amendment. Back-to-back years, very important amendments to analyze and take a look at. So let's take a look at the 18th, which was set up in 1919. So at the time, again, alcohol consumption had become a major problem, a lot of disorderly conduct, a lot of violence. Cars are starting to hit the road, so you had a lot of drunk driving. And what happened in this amendment, the 18th Amendment, we saw the banning of alcohol. And this era is going to be known as Prohibition. So alcohol distribution, production, sales, all was eliminated on the surface. Obviously, as you guys know, there's a lot of bootlegging, a lot of illegal activity going on during this time. But there was a reason behind it. There was a big push for prohibition, and it actually got passed in 1919. Okay, the following year, 1920, 19th Amendment, very important. Okay, and it's only been 100 years, but women get the right to vote, women's suffrage. Okay, this amendment gave women the right to vote, and it could no longer be denied based on their gender. Okay, so women have the right to vote in 1920. Think about it, it's 2020 now. Women have only had the right to vote for 100 years, and again, that is something we have to put into context. It's something we have to understand. Okay. Next, let's go to the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. So the 20th Amendment, passed in 1933, basically changed the starting times for terms. Okay. So after this election, whoever wins president, they are going to start their term on January 20th, 2021. Okay, their term will end, or it could be extended, but it will end on January 20th, 2025. Okay, congressional terms are going to start and end on January 3rd. So that was established in 1933. Also in 1933, the 21st Amendment, it is the repeal of the 18th Amendment. So prohibition no longer exists. Alcohol sales, production, distribution, back on the table. Okay, it was allowed. It was basically put in place for 14 years, and in that 14 years, we saw a lot of crime, we saw a lot of illegal activity, and Congress just said, you know what, let's just legalize alcohol once again. Okay, the 22nd Amendment, 1951. This is an important one. This placed a limitation on presidential terms, so presidents can only serve 2 terms. All right, it's a maximum, only 2 terms. The reason why this is put in place is, again, FDR, he was elected to a 4th term. He didn't finish his term because he passed away in office. But 4 terms, that became a big debate, and they felt that 2 should be the maximum. So, again, in a regular situation, a president can only serve a maximum of 8 years. Okay, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Let's take a look at these. 23rd Amendment passed in 1961. So the District of Columbia, yeah, they get a vote in presidential elections. So for the 2020 election, D.C. will have 3 electoral votes, okay, in the Electoral College. So D.C. citizens, they have the right to vote because of the 23rd Amendment. 24th Amendment, this is passed in 1964. This amendment bans tax payment as a voter qualification. So many, many years prior, a lot of states had essentially created a poll tax. So if you couldn't afford the tax, you couldn't vote, and that was a way to suppress votes. This eliminated having to pay a poll tax. Okay. The 25th Amendment, passed in 1967, deals with presidential succession. So after a president dies in office, what happens? Well, it goes to the vice president, then it goes to the Speaker of the House, and then it goes way down the line. So you have a full list of succession that will occur in case of emergencies. Okay, it also discusses what happens if a vice president dies in office, and also has to deal with the mental and physical well-being of the president. Okay, so the 25th Amendment, again, is something we have to understand as well. Okay, more recent, that was passed in 1967, shortly after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. More recent amendments are 26th and 27th. So the 26th Amendment, 1971, this is a big one. The amendment lowered the voting age to 18. Okay, passing this amendment really had to deal with a lot of the protests against the Vietnam War. A lot of people were saying, listen, if a man can be drafted into the military at the age of 18, he can draft and he can serve, but he can't vote. That became a major issue, and people took issue with it. The voting age was lowered to 18. And again, a lot of it stemmed from the protests against the Vietnam War. Now, again, there are some out there that feel that the age should be lowered down to 16. Some people feel that's way too low. So right now it still currently sits at 18, and that was passed in 1971. And lastly, the 27th Amendment, which was passed in 1992, this deals with congressional pay. Okay, so congressional pay, it prohibits any increase or decrease in salary until the next set of terms of office are officially set. So how much money people in Congress are making, that can't be determined until the terms are set. And believe it or not, that took over 200 years to ratify. So it sat in Congress for over 200 years, but it finally got passed in 1992. Okay? So there you have it. Amendments 11 through 27, all of them having significance, having importance. Some are discussed more than others, but that's a look in depth on Amendments 11 through 27. All right? That wraps up our discussions for Chapter 2. Have a good day.